Okay, thank you everyone. I think we can start now. Thank you all for joining. My name is Amir. I handle the technical courses at the Academy of Astrolabs. I would like to introduce you to Peter. He's the full stack developer. He can give you a better introduction. Please, Peter, go ahead. Thank you so much.
Okay, so you want me to start sharing my screen now, or?
Yeah, you can share your screen. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, let me just start with that. We start the presentation. Okay, can you see the presentation right now?
Yeah,
we
all
can see
good.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So my name is Peter. I'm a web developer focusing mostly on the front end. And today I would like to introduce you to React as one of the best ways to do modern web development. Let me just start. This is the intro about Astrolabs. Do you want to take over about this, Amir, or should we just continue? Amir?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I can take care of this. So basically, just a small intro about Astrolabs. Here we have the goal of Astrolabs is to drive and upscale the technical ecosystem here in the region. We are a startup. We started in 2013, and our goal is to help the technical side of Astrolabs. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, as you can see, yeah, the previous one, please. Sorry about that. Yeah, as you can see, we have different. We work on different verticals. So basically, we have the academy side, which where I work. We have multiple courses of like digital marketing, full stack web development, where Peter actually took the course and learned about full stack web development. And we currently also have data analysis, data science, social media, multiple courses where we're trying to upscale the people in the region. We also have a talent team of recruiters that can help with individual and corporate recruitment. We have also corporate training where we help companies give them a customized courses or corporate training for their employees if they're looking to learn some skill to upscale their team. And we also have licensing and co-working space here in Dubai and another one in Riyadh, KSA. And we can also help with licensing and starting their own business. Yeah. So like for you to enjoy, like for you to have the best experience in the session, just like you can ask us questions, feel free to open your mic to send us on the chat. Always pick up, like if there's nothing is not clear, anything is not clear or anything, just ask. It's fine. We're here. We're having a discussion. You can say not just a presentation. Feel free to interrupt, ask us whatever you want, and I'll leave you to Peter now. He can start. Thanks so much.
Yeah, just like Amir said, we're gonna have a Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions during the meetup, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, a little info about me. I'm not gonna go through all of it right now, but I am a web developer, full stack web developer, though I focus mostly on the front-end side, which is the client side, and that is what ReactJs is an integral part of. Okay, what are we going to talk about? Is first I'm going to give you a web technology overview, which is what is used currently in modern web development. What are the comparisons and why React is a good choice right now. And after that, I would like to invite you to a short interactive exercise example. You can code alongside with me. I'm going to share the link with you, or you can just watch, and I'll try to present how easily and simply you can build and achieve results with React. Okay. Okay. So what comprises a web application? Well, first of all, you need a browser, right? Any kind. You can have Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Microsoft Edge, just don't use Explorer. It's a bit outdated right now, but that is where your content is displayed. So if you don't have a browser, you can't view any kind of application. Okay. Then you have HTML and CSS, one of the building blocks of the app. If you wanna make a comparison, like let's say to a house, for example, you could say HTML is the fundaments, the walls even, is basically the structure you have for your app. Now, CSS is the style. So it's the color of the walls, is the shape of the roof, is the alignment of the windows, right? And SAS less SCSS is basically preprocessors for CSS, but don't worry about those. Basically, it's all for styling. And then we go to JavaScript, like the third component. As you can see right here, it even looks and definitely is quite a lot actually, more complex than the previous two. And it is the functionality. So if HTML is the fundamentals, is the structure, CSS is the styling, JavaScript is for comparing the house again. It would be the electricity, the fact that your windows can actually open. It would be the plumbing and all that. And as you can see at this chart right here, it is the most used programming language in as of 2020, according to a survey done by Stack Overflow. Anybody heard about Stack Overflow here? Basically, it's a forum for, yeah, okay. So you know, it's a forum for developers. Like, if you have a question, any kind of question, that you're stuck at work, I don't know how to do this, you go to Stack Overflow, and the most scary thing is when there's no answer there, but usually there is. So it's a very valid place to take surveys such as this, because it's full of developers. And as you can see here, JavaScript is on the top, right below it, HTML and CSS, which arguably are not strictly programming languages, but yes, still they are used for coding. Now, you might have heard at some point that like 80% of the web is built with PHP, right? But it's not one of the three building blocks I mentioned of the web app. But why is that? Well, that is because the browser doesn't understand anything except HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? You can use PHP, Java, and so on to write backend code and it to kind of compile to JavaScript, but it has to be JavaScript in the end. So even though a lot of the web is based on PHP, like 99% of it uses JavaScript. That's why it's so popular. That's why it's so used. Okay. Okay. But since JavaScript is used for everything, why are there all these additional tools to it? Like, anybody heard of jQuery, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah. jQuery is a simpler way to write JavaScript. Yeah, it shortens the syntax. It makes it easier. That was one of the first frameworks / libraries introduced. But we also have Angular, we have React, we have Vue, and those are in place for a reason. Because as popular as JavaScript is, it's kind of inherently flawed because it was developed in 10 days by one guy. So, well, it's not perfect. It obviously had improvements over the time, known as the iterations of ECMAScript, like the most predominant one being ECMAScript ES6. Like, sometimes when you see a job ad or a developer describing their skills, they have JavaScript between brackets ES6 plus. That means they're familiar with, the most current with most current syntax. But anyway, JavaScript frameworks and libraries. And the term framework library is now used interchangeably because they basically are used for the same thing, though technically there is a difference, and that being you work within a framework and a library you can import to your code at any time. So Angular falls in the category of framework. It was introduced by Google in 2010, and the long-term support for it will end at the end of this year, for which it will be fully replaced by Angular. Yeah, that kind of the same name is a bit confusing here. So developers usually refer to the new Angular as Angular 2+, Angular version 2, and so on. And being developed by Google, it is used by some big companies like Google itself, Forbes, Gmail, of course, and PayPal. And the thing about the new Angular coming, it's based on TypeScript, which is a subset of, well, strongly typed JavaScript. So in order to enter Angular, you don't not only have to know JavaScript, you have to learn TypeScript as well. Okay. Now we have Vue. Vue is the most recent library introduced, JavaScript library introduced. It came to life in 2014, and it was developed by a former employee of Google who basically wanted to make a lightweight version of Angular, because a lot of people don't like working with Angular because it's very complex. It's quite complicated. So he wanted to make something simpler, and he did succeed. A lot of people like working with Vue, though the problem is it simplifies stuff so much, but not that it is not unusable by serious projects, but well, the fact is it's not being used to the scale that React and Angular are being used. Okay, my main subject, React, introduced by Facebook in 2013. It's kind of in between Angular and Vue when it comes to complexity. Like the general view is you use Angular for the most complex, giant corporate applications. You use Vue as like this hipster framework for like nice looking smaller apps, and React is somewhere in between. But the fact is, it powers Facebook, it powers Instagram, Netflix, WhatsApp. Those aren't really some medium-sized apps. You know, those are one of the biggest applications on the planet, right? So it can definitely be used just as Angular is used or better. Yeah. As a matter of fact, out of all of those, it's the most used framework, not counting jQuery, because that is still in use mostly due to legacy, because lots of applications were built with jQuery, and kind of migrating the code can be a bit problematic. So people continue to use jQuery to upgrade their apps, or it can also still be used, as I said before, for simpler applications, right? You just want maybe a landing page, something with not too much functionality. You want to use, let's say, Bootstrap combined with jQuery, make a website really fast. Sure, you can do that. Though within React, even there are alternatives that are gonna make it, that will make it, and do make it better. Yeah, and you can see like Angular is way down here. Yeah, like making fun of Angular sometimes. Okay, most loved libraries also. React almost at the top, and this is not only considering front-end development libraries, right? Out of pretty much any of the web development ones, React is on the top. Right below it, you can see Vue, Angular is in the middle, and AngularJS at the bottom. So not only is React one of the most used ones, because developers love working with it, the pool of developers is constantly growing. Okay, most wanted as well. Like out of all of technologies, a developer or a set of developers do not yet know when they're asked, okay, what do you want to pick up next? Well, they usually respond to React. So that adds to the fact that it is most loved, it is most used, and will continuously be more used because most people for most people, it is the language, it is the framework that they wanna pick up next. Like, anyone have experience with maybe Angular before, or jQuery, anything else before? Right, never mind. Yeah, live websites. You have almost 4 million live websites using React, and just over 1 million using Angular, for example. So that also gives you a view how much more currently React is used. Yeah, contributors and job statistics. So contributors are basically the people that know how to code, are very good at it, and they add their work to the project. Okay, each of the frameworks has their own repository. The contributors look at it, find the bugs, and try to fix them. The more contributors you have, the more likely the bugs and the problems are gonna be found sooner, and the solutions to them are gonna be introduced sooner as well as upgrades, right? And you can see React at the top with 1.3K contributors. Angular a bit below, and Vue at the bottom. Like I said, Vue is the least used one. Job statistics, you can see overall, like I think only 2 job boards favor Angular when it comes to job statistics, and React is overwhelmingly at the top. And yeah, that has several reasons because as to why that is happening. Because like the tech lead, the operation manager, the CTO chooses the tech stack. Okay, we want to build our applications with Angular, React, vanilla JavaScript, whatever. So a large portion of them choose React. Well, for some reasons, like it's very capable, it's very highly performant. There's a lot of developers doing it, so just only the pluses really. Yeah. Why choose ReactJs in more detail? Okay, it's a very performant language. And by very performant, I mean it can, because it's a library, because you're not locked within a framework, you can integrate with a lot of other technologies. You can use Microsoft.NET, Ruby on Rails, Python, PHP, Meteor. Like I said before, PHP powers a lot of the web. I think the figure is about 80%. That's mainly due to WordPress. But you can, there's a thing called, I think it's React WordPress. I'm not sure about the exact name, but you can use React to integrate even with WordPress. Python, Rails, those are backend languages. And while ideally you would use React with something else, you can use any kind of backend you want, and React will work just fine with it. Yeah. When I said ideally you would use it with something else, I meant this. This is the MERN stack, which stands for MongoDB, Express.js, React, and Node.js. This is the full stack developer stack that's actually taught at Astrolabs. And knowing all these ensures that you can make like fully functioning full stack applications only using one language, which is JavaScript. And that is certainly beneficial to you. Like, you don't have to learn, like I said, Java, PHP, C#, Python, then middleware and SQL, then learn how to communicate between all of them. Because using JavaScript, you can utilize all of those. MongoDB, that's a database, a NoSQL database, which, well, the documents in there are structured in a JSON model, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So basically, there are JavaScript objects. Express is a framework for Node.js, and Node.js is a runtime environment in which you can write backend code using JavaScript. Yeah. And React, JavaScript library, perfect. One language, you can do the whole thing. Previously, a very popular stack used to be the mean stack, which is the same as MERN, just instead of React, you have Angular. And what that means is, like, either if you are a developer transitioning from Angular, or you're a business and looking for MERN stack developers, somebody that's been experienced in the mean stack only has to substitute Angular for React, and they're good to go. Really, it's so convenient. A bit more about performance. So, what does React actually do? Why is it performant? Well, it's partly thanks to the concept of the virtual DOM that it implements. Anybody heard the term virtual DOM? It's basically thrown around. That's one of the strengths of React, which it is. Okay, so what we have, like, DOM is a document object model. Document object model is basically what you see on the screen. And what React does, it kind of makes a copy of the DOM. Then a change happens. Let's say you click something. Okay, React registers that. Okay, a user has clicked something, compares that to the actual DOM. Okay, this has not been clicked here, but everything remains the same. So React is like, okay, I'm just gonna change this. There we go. That means all of these parts, everything else, does not need to be re-rendered, right? I'm pretty sure everyone, when you are on any kind of website, let's say you have a top navigation bar, and you click between the links, and you see, for example, the whole nav bar flashing for a second, or there's a loading, like a spinning loading bar appearing. That doesn't happen really with React, because those pieces of UI do not need to be rendered. Only the things that change within React need to be rendered again, which improves performance. Let's say at the top bar you have a quite resource-intensive logo, like it takes a bit of space. So initially you hide it behind a loading screen, but once it's there forever. So you don't need to reload it ever again. So the user experience is really improved. Okay. SEO. Anybody familiar with the term SEO, search engine optimization?
Yep.
So, as you know, it's quite important, right? Everybody wants to have their page on their site, their app on the first page of Google. Like, as the joke goes, like, where if you want to hide something for nobody to ever find it, where do you hide it? Oh, on the second page of Google results, right? React offers similar tools to other solutions when it comes to SEO optimization, which differs depending on which tools in React you use, but it also offers speed. And while it might not be the dominant factor, it is confirmed by Google that site speed is an actual factor for SEO. And as you can see from this diagram right here, the longer it takes the page to load, the more likely it will be on the far end of Google results. Like, if it's anything anywhere beyond here, it's no longer relevant. Yeah. As JavaScript has its frameworks, its libraries, so does React itself. And they exist to fill a specific purpose. So, like I said before, you can use React to make full stack applications. And if you use pure React, that gives you a lot of flexibility, right? You can combine it with a MERN stack, you can combine it with other backend languages, and so on to make your app work. But you can also use a library and framework called Next.js. which is used by some quite big companies like Hulu, for example. And their senior software engineer actually praises Next.js, allowing the team to not do all the heavy lifting. So Next makes a full stack application kind of for you. It handles most of the server-side code. And you do want that sometimes, like if you don't want to have, if you don't need to have exact full control over the backend, Next.js can handle it for you. And it's also quite good for SEO because it creates a fully crawlable site. Okay. Gatsby. Well, Gatsby is at the other side of the spectrum, right? Like I said, React is fast. Gatsby is extremely fast. It's instant. Like you create an app with Gatsby, and it's ridiculous how fast everything transitions, how fast everything works. Now the downside is those are static sites. So simpler, like when you don't need too much or any server-side functionality. You don't need a database, you don't need users to log in and so on. You just want a landing page. Let's say you have a hair salon, for example, and you just want people to be able to call you. You make it in Gatsby, it's gonna be lightning fast, it's gonna improve the user experience dramatically. And this thing here, this is the Lighthouse test result, which is a plugin you can download on Google Chrome. It's actually quite handy because you can use it on any site to verify how well does it perform. You can even use it on your own projects because it actually gives you some guidelines like what you can improve, how you can improve it in terms of performance, accessibility, and so on. And sites made with Gatsby average a Lighthouse score at the top 10 sites made with Gatsby average a score of 91, which is about 30 higher than the web average, which is a significant advantage. Yeah, scalability, a very important feature in React, because how it's structured is you have these things called components, right? Like shown here, first component, second component, third component. Changing one does not affect the other, unless you want it to, unless you pass some prop or some function somewhere that, or some global state that you want changes here to affect this one. But in general, it makes adding new content, new features extremely easy. And also, if you find a problem, you can easily locate it, fix it, and the rest of your app is fine. Okay. Last thing, when it comes to the presentation itself, React can be used for mobile as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Astrolabs also offers a course for React Native, which is quite useful because, well, it's not the same as React. You can't just open your React code, copy paste, into your React Native, and you can open it on a phone. Unfortunately, it doesn't work as easy as that, but it's still kind of the same framework. So you can share the backend, obviously, but also your client-side code structure can remain, while not exactly the same. It can share the core architecture, it can share the methodology. So if, for example, you change something in your web application, you want the same change in your mobile app, it's not so easy to implement it simultaneously. And also having a developer familiar with React, making them familiar with React Native, it's much less of a chore if they would have to pick up, I don't know, Kotlin or Swift or Android and iOS specific development. Okay. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. So now I would like to go to the coding exercise. Let me just close this. Yeah. Okay. Does everybody see the coding screen right here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me share the link with all of you. Just, where's the... Okay. Feel free to code alongside me, or I will also share a link to the complete version after. So you can then like kind of play around with it. Now, once this loads for you, if you want to code with me, you may want to click Change View and pick this tab right here to make it look the same as it does on my screen. Yeah. Okay, everybody ready? Okay. Okay, so what this is gonna be is it's gonna be a simple image search, but in its principle, it's gonna be an application that can be used to a much further extent. So what's gonna do? We're gonna type in something, I don't know, house, for example. Try to search right now, it does nothing. Well, obviously, we want our application to do something, want it to work. Yeah. We want it to display images in the form of cards. Okay, so we're gonna, don't mind all of this code. This is something I prepared beforehand. It's much simpler than it actually looks. And in a production application, it would look quite different because each of those components, main screen, search bar, app, would be its own file. Even the search bar would be split into two files, but I don't want to get too much into that right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a card component. I'm going to make a constant. Constant is another name for a, well, it's a type or a variable in JavaScript. So I call it card. I'm going to make it into an arrow function. Okay. And we want it to return something, obviously. Okay, I'm gonna have parentheses because it's gonna be a multi-line statement. Now, and the problem with writing code in an online code editor like this is that it doesn't really autofill much for you. So if you make a small typing mistake, you can spend quite a bit of time looking for it. And believe me, I know I spent like 30 minutes trying to figure out what's wrong with my version here the other day, and I just missed a semicolon somewhere. Okay, now we're gonna be giving it class names. Now, how React is written, utilizes a thing called JSX, which is basically a combination of JavaScript and HTML. Class name, that's how it's written in React. If we were just doing HTML, it would be class name, I believe. It's been a while since I've written pure HTML, honestly. Okay. And our HTML file, just one line of code, because we don't need any more. CSS a bit more, so to make it look better, but mostly we'll be writing here in JS, which with some plugins we kind of compile from React. Okay, so we want to have our parent, let's say section. No, I shouldn't say section. For the sake of argument, let's call it a section called card. Okay, inside, I'm gonna want to have an image. The class name of card. If you're wondering, we can call them anything you want. like the names of our classes is all up to us. I'm using this double underscore because that's one of the conventions, but you can use anything you want. Now we're notifying the app that there's going to be an image here. Okay, but where to take it from? I mean, the source. Normally, the source will be a string. Okay, HTTP www something com, or it could point to a file on our drive. But we want the image to be displayed dynamically according to our search. How React does that? I'm going to pass in props that image. This value we can name whatever we want. We call it image because it's going to be an image. It's going to be easier to us. We assign props to this component. Props is a way of components communicating with each other. More accurately, the parent component communicating with the child component, because we're going to place this in somewhere else, but we'll get to that in a moment. And we have to remember to close this tag because otherwise it won't work. Okay, let's go with just with image for now. Okay, so we have it, yeah, but still not working because we're not calling this anymore. We're going to return it within our search bar component, which is not ideal, but just for the sake of this exercise. And I'm going to do a bit complex thing here, which is called conditional rendering. And that is just because of how I structure the code right now. This is basically where our data is stored, because we are taking the images and the descriptions and so on from a thing called Unsplash, which is basically a resource for free images on the internet. I recommend it to everyone. If you ever need like an image or something, you want to use it without attribution, use it for free somewhere, go to Unsplash, you can find lots of stuff there. They also have an API, which allows us to, well, get access to the database. Now, we make a call right here, and we store those results in a received data state variable. And we only want to call them if there's something in there, right? So our app, in order for our app to not crash, we don't want to try to call our card component if we have nothing to fill it with, yeah? So we do a thing called conditional rendering, okay? Check if I'm correct here. Yeah. This string is a path to the image from the response from Unsplash, and now hopefully it will work. But if it finishes loading eventually, and there we go. Now we have one image from Unsplash, but ideally we want to have more. Yeah, ideally want our applications to show more. What we're gonna do, because now we're just getting the first response from the API. Now we wanna get everything. That was basically just a test to, okay, if our code is working. You always wanna do that when you're writing an app, or writing any kind of code. Test it on a smaller scale. If it works, we go to the actual solution. Okay. So we're gonna repeat this. Gonna conditional render it again, but this time we want to get all the responses. So we're gonna use a method of JavaScript called map, which does something to every element of an array And the response we get is an array of objects which contains images, description, and so on. And we basically want to get all of them. So we map through them. We're going to refer to each item as item. That's just simple. Why is it indenting so much? Okay. Semicolon here. Okay, and this. Or not. Just a second. So data map, item. Ah, see? That's what I'm talking about. You make one simple mistake, the code no longer works. There we go. Now we can have hundreds of images. This is just limited by the response parameter set. We can load hundreds of images of any phrase, and it's instant. It works super fast. Now we're not, of course, limited just to pictures. We can, let's say, we have an internet store, for example. Want a picture, want a description. Okay, we can access that as well. And just what we're looking for an image itself. We're gonna have a paragraph, let's say. Paragraph, no, let's make it a div as well. Give it a class name of. We're gonna go with card, desk for description. Close it right away here, so we don't forget. This does not need the source. This will just have text in it, but the text we also wanna supply dynamically. I'm gonna name it props. Again, short for description. And we're gonna call it here. We call it prop. And the path to it is item, and I believe all description. No, description. Okay. Let me finish loading. Back on. And we messed something up. I mean, I messed something up. Image. Let me just get this whole thing from here so we don't waste time. Let me mess it up here. Ah, props, not prop. Again, yeah, there we go. See, one tiny mistake. I thought the problem was here. Problem was here. That will not happen to you if you use an actual code editor on your machine. But yeah, now we have dynamic generated descriptions, and well, okay, for this, like what are they going to use an image app for, right? Well, just to display images, but you can use the same principle. How this is written here. We just, well, we written what? For 6 lines of codes, we added, we changed, and we can have hundreds of results. Let's say you have a store, like I mentioned, you have some kind of service, you offer products, you have a database, you use this, you get the answer from your backend right here. Also, there's a few lines of code. You call it here. You can populate it whatever you want. You can style it however you want. This is also fully responsive. So yeah, it's one of the main things React is being used for, is generating lists like this. I mean, it's one of the common uses. And yeah, it's quite powerful. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to show you something practical. You know, we could have just made a counter, you know, like click this to increase number by 1, decrease by 1, but I know this might seem a bit complex, might seem a bit overwhelming, but once you get at least a bit into it, you realize that yeah, this all makes sense. And if you compare it to other languages, other frameworks, especially if you were to generate JavaScript on the back end using AJX, it's just horrible. Compare it to React, it's so intuitive, so simple, and just a joy to work with. And yeah, and on that note, that's all I have for you today in terms of presentation and coding example. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was really, really insightful. As a person myself who studied web development before, really interested to see like how React is really helpful in the current web development fields. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions for me or for Peter, please go ahead. You can unmute your mic and ask. You're more than welcome, Muhammad and Christoph. You're more than welcome. I really hope you enjoyed the session. And again, thank you so much, Peter. I dropped a link on the chat. I'll drop it again if you want the slides and if you want the recording.
That's great.
Okay. No worries, Harry. Yeah, there's a link if you want on the chat where you can get the recording and the slides of the session. I'll also drop in my email in case you have any questions or if you need to inquire about anything with us, with Astrolabs, with Peter himself, just feel free to email me. It was a pleasure having you all and have a great day. And again, thank you so much, Peter.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Have a nice day.
Thank you. What? Yeah, the pieces are coming tonight, so you don't have to worry. Yeah, tonight. What? No, tonight, not tomorrow. Yeah.
Just for one day.
Yeah. It was like more than 2 months, like even more than 3 months.
Yes.
Nearly 4 months.
Yeah.
Have a little patience.
Yes, more patience.